The fire is burning lower now, children, but its embers see the deepest truths. The proud tree has been bent by the wind, but will it break, or will it learn to sway? I sing now of the long, dusty road of atonement, where every step is a prayer, and every stone untied is a wound offered to the sun for healing. Listen, for the heart of a people is being remade, one honest word at a time. Chief Lucas's walk was a pilgrimage through a mirror of his own making. The stones at his ankle were more than weight. They were the solid, cold echoes of broken trust. At the compound of the potter whose clay pit he had seized for Moto's barge, he found not just anger, but a deep, creative sorrow. The woman, Adiz, showed him her cracked and blistered hands. The clay from that pit was special. It held the spirit of the riverbank. Now I work with common dirt, and my pots ring hollow. She did not ask for the pit back, for the river had since softened its banks there, making it unstable. Sit with me for a day, she said. Learn to turn the wheel. Feel what was lost in your hands. The virtue of empathy was his lesson. His palms blistered alongside hers, understanding the value he had trampled. That night, exhausted and sore, he camped at the edge of the village. A group of children, curious and unafraid, brought him water and a little fufu. One boy, whose father had left because of the tolls, asked, "Why does the river talk?" Lucas, finding a simple truth, replied, "Because we forgot how to listen to each other." The boy nodded sagely. The child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. The proverb, from a child's lips, struck Lucas deeper than any elder's rebuke. His failure had chilled the communal hearth. Meanwhile, Amanda and her family worked to restore the sacred landing. Kelvin and other young men carefully carried Hugo, the sacred canoe, back to the water. This was not just physical labor. It was a cultural ritual of resurrection. As they lifted it, they chanted the names of all the ferry keepers who had come before, asking their spirits to bless the wood once more. When the prow touched the water, a collective sigh went through the onlookers. The canoe bobbed gently, as if waking from a long sleep. Kelvin made the first ceremonial crossing alone, paddling to the center of Nkaya and pouring in a libation of palm oil and honey, a plea for sweetness to return to their dealings. Amanda and Mama Emma prepared the landing site, sweeping it with bundles of sweetgrass. They built a small shrine of the smooth stones the chief was collecting, stacking them with intention. Each stone returned is a word put back into a promise, Mama Emma said, her hands steady on Amanda's. But a promise remade must be stronger than the one broken. They began to plan the final ritual, the one that would seal the village's new covenant. It would require not just the chief, but every heart in Bakwa. The chief's journey grew harder as he reached those he had wounded most deeply. He came to the family of a fisherman who had drowned the season before. The man's brother stood stiffly. "You raised the toll." He tried to cross in a storm in his leaky boat because he could not pay your barge. The river took his body, but you took his choice. The accusation hung in the air, heavier than any stone. The virtue of accountability demanded he face a consequence, with no easy fix. Lucas had no livestock grand enough, no labor sufficient. He knelt in the dust before the man's hut. "I cannot bring back your brother. I can only offer my life in service to his memory. From this day, my family will provide for his children as if they were my own. Their schooling, their weddings, will be my burden and my honor." It was an oath that would outlive him. The fisherman's brother, tears in his eyes, finally nodded. He untied the stone from the cord and placed it not in the sack, but in the chief's hand. "Carry this one until the day you die. Remember its weight." Lucas accepted it, the truest and heaviest of them all. As the chief's sack of resolved stones grew heavier, the water script on the village doors began to change. The accusing words did not vanish, but beneath them, new lines of water would form, recording the act of reconciliation. Outside the baker's door, below the record of the stolen bread, shimmering letters now read, "Paid in 7 days of wood." It was the river's way of keeping a new, honest ledger. The people watched this phenomenon with awe. Nkaya was not just a judge, but a scribe, acknowledging every step toward balance. This visible grace softened hearts. People began to speak to each other more openly, to settle old quarrels that had nothing to do with the chief, fearing the river might right them next. The cultural tradition of the evening storytelling circle was revived, but now the stories told were not just of heroes, but of mistakes and lessons learned. The community was practicing the virtue of transparency, and in that vulnerability, the first fragile threads of new trust were spun. However, not all wounds were ready to close. The chief came to the hut of a weaver named Sophia, a woman known for her sharp tongue and sharper memory. Her name was on his list for a tax levied on her looms. She listened to his apology, her arms crossed. Then she pointed to her doorstep, where only her name glowed, with no debtor named beside it. "The river writes that I owe a debt too," she said sharply. "It says I withheld my best patterns from the girls' apprenticeship, jealous of their youth. My shame is my own. You cannot atone for it. So take your stone and go. My healing is between me and the water." Her words were a crucial lesson. The walk of return was cleansing the public breach, but each person's private dishonor was their own journey. "He who hunts 2 rats catches none," the elder had said. Lucas could not fix everything. He could only clean his own path. He left her stone at the edge of her property, a symbol that the debt was acknowledged, its resolution hers to claim. The walk was teaching the village about personal and collective responsibility, intertwined yet distinct. On the 7th day of walk, the chief, now gaunt and dusty, arrived at the Emma family compound. This was the moment the entire village had waited for. The landing was clean, Hugo floated proudly, and Amanda's family stood together. Mama Emma sat on her stool, the matriarch awaiting a reckoning. Lucas's ankle cord held only a few stones now, but among them was the largest and darkest, the stone for the theft of their livelihood and their honor. He did not speak immediately. Instead, he walked past them to the sacred canoe. He placed his hands on its sun-warmed wood, then knelt and pressed his forehead against the eagle-head prow. The crowd was utterly silent. When he rose, his face was wet. He turned to the family. "I took your place, your purpose, and your pride. I sold the paddle that guided us all for a bag of northern salt. I have no offer grand enough." He held out the dark stone. "The river alone can judge if this can ever be removed." Kelvin stepped forward, his expression unreadable. He took the stone from the chief's hand. He hefted it, feeling its weight. Then, to everyone's surprise, he walked to the water's edge and drew back his arm as if to throw it into the deepest channel. But he stopped. He turned back. "A river is not polluted by having a crocodile in it," he said, the proverb meaning that one corrupt element does not define the whole. "You are the crocodile, chief, but the river is bigger than you." He did not throw the stone. Instead, he placed it at the base of the new shrine Mama Emma and Amanda had built. "This stone stays here," Kelvin declared, "at the landing, where everyone can see it. So we never forget what happens when we forget." It was not forgiveness, but a solemn, permanent remembrance. It was a condition for moving forward. The chief bowed his head in acceptance of this lasting monument to his failure. The virtue of wisdom in Kelvin's act was profound. True healing requires memory, not amnesia. With the Emma family's conditional acceptance, the chief's public walk was complete. His sack was full of stones to be returned to the river, and his ankle bore only the fisherman's stone, which he would keep for life. That evening, the elders gathered under the baobab with the Emma family and the chief. It was time to decide the final ritual, the act that would formally restore the covenant between Bakwa and Kaya. The elder woman who knew the old ways spoke. "The river asked for the debts to be addressed. They have been. Now we must give her a new promise, one sealed by all." She described the new Uhuru, the new life binding. Every adult in the village would bring a token of their livelihood, a farmer's seed, a weaver's thread, a smith's piece of iron. These would be placed in the sacred canoe. The chief, as the community's head, would then speak a new oath of stewardship into the water, and Amanda, as the river's acknowledged messenger, would paddle the canoe to the center, letting the current accept the tokens and the vow. But first, the chief had one more private journey to make. Before the communal ritual, Chief Lucas undertook a solitary vigil. Following the elder's instruction, he went to the source spring of Nkaya, a day's walk into the forested hills. This was a place of utter quiet, where the water first bubbled from the earth. Here, he was to fast and listen. The cultural tradition of the source vigil was for leaders who had lost their way, to reconnect with the pure, undivided origin of their responsibility. For a night and a day, he sat on a mossy stone, the constant, gentle birth of the river his only company. He thought of his father, of the first time he was brought here as a boy. He remembered the feeling of the cold spring water on his forehead, the charge to be clear and life-giving. He had become stagnant and muddy. As dawn of the second day broke, a forest antelope came to drink. It looked at him with calm, dark eyes, unafraid. In that moment, he felt not pardoned, but simply seen. He was part of the landscape again, not its master. He cupped the virgin water in his hands, drank, and whispered, "I will try to be worthy of your beginning." The day of the new life binding arrived. The entire village lined the bank, every adult holding their token. The atmosphere was solemn, hopeful. The chief stood at the landing, dressed not in regalia, but in a simple white tunic of undyed cotton, the garment of a supplicant. Amanda stood by Hugo, dressed in a blue wrapper the color of deep water, her mother's braid and the white shell visible. The sacred canoe was empty, waiting. One by one, the villagers came forward. A farmer dropped in a handful of millet seeds. A blacksmith added a small, well-made nail. A mother placed a bead from her child's bracelet. The baker laid in a roll. The potter, at ease, after a moment's hesitation, placed a perfect, tiny clay whistle that could mimic a bird's call, a symbol of beauty returning. The canoe began to hold not just objects, but the collective intention of a community, choosing to be bound together anew. When all tokens were given, Chief Lucas waded into the shallows up to his knees. He turned to face his people, the water swirling around his legs. He raised his hands, and his voice, though worn, carried firm and clear. "Hear me, people of Bakwa, and hear me, Nkaya, who remembers. I broke the covenant of this water. Today I make a new one, not from my mouth alone, but from the heart of this village." He spoke an oath of stewardship, to guard the river's free passage, to judge with the elders under the baobab, to measure wealth by the health of the community, and to wear the fisherman's stone as his guide. He then took a large, empty calabash, submerged it, and let it fill with river water. "This is the weight I now carry," he said, and drank deeply from it, consuming the very truth he had once feared. It was an act of profound symbolic surrender. The people murmured in approval. The virtue of humility had been transformed into a public strength. Now it was Amanda's turn. She stepped gracefully into Hugo, seating herself at the paddler's position. Kelvin gave the canoe a gentle push into the current. Silence fell, broken only by the dip of her paddle and the river's flow. She guided the laden canoe to the very center of Nkaya, to the pool where the water was deepest and stillest. Here, she stopped paddling and let the canoe drift. She held the white shell aloft. "Nkaya," she called, her voice ringing across the water. "You who keep promises. We have seen your writing. We have felt the weight of our broken words. We offer you these tokens of our work and our lives. Take them, and with them, take this new vow from your children. Bind us again to you and to each other." She then carefully tipped the canoe sideways, just enough for the water to flow in and carry the countless tokens over the gunwale and into the depths. They sank like a shower of pledges, glittering as they disappeared. For a long moment, nothing happened. The canoe righted, bobbing gently. Amanda held her breath. Then, from the spot where the tokens had sunk, a circle of bubbles rose, followed by a swirl of pure, silver light that spiraled just beneath the surface. It moved outward in a slow, expanding ring until it touched the banks. Where the light passed, the last remnants of the water script on the doors and thresholds finally faded, not with a wipe, but with a gentle gleam, as if absorbed back into the earth. From the riverbed, a soft, harmonious hum arose, the same song Amanda had heard on the bluff, but now amplified, a chorus of deep contentment. The people on the bank felt it in their chests, a vibration of peace. The river had accepted their offering. The ledger was cleared. A great, collective exhalation swept through Bakwa, the sound of a burden lifted. Tears flowed freely, not of shame, but of release. Amanda paddled back to the landing. As she approached, she and everyone else saw a new wonder. Washed up on the sandy bank where the canoe would touch were hundreds of pure white shells, identical to the one she possessed. They were arranged not by chance, but by the retreating water into a distinct, beautiful pattern. A wide, circular crown made of interlocking braids of shell. It was a symbol of restored authority, but an authority of service, not domination. The elder woman gasped, "The crown Mkaya. It is from the oldest stories. It marks a people who have been judged and have chosen to return to the way." Kelvin and Amanda carefully lifted the fragile, perfect formation. They carried it to the Emma family compound. Following an unspoken consensus, they did not bring it inside. Instead, they placed it above the doorway, binding it with strong vines to the lintel. It was not theirs to wear, but for all to see, a testament that this house, and by extension the village, now lived under the river's benevolent guidance once more. The celebration that followed was not like Moto's feast. It was quiet, deep, and shared. People brought what they had: stew, song, and gratitude. The chief sat among them, not on a stool, but on the ground, the fisherman's stone in his lap. He spoke little, but listened much. Children played by the water, their laughter sounding sweeter, clearer. As night fell, Amanda stood with her family under the crown of shells. Mama Emma took her hand. "You carried our cry to the river, and you carried her answer back. You are a griot of water now. Your story is part of the current." Amanda looked at the river, silver under the rising moon. She felt no pride, only a profound belonging. "However far the stream flows, it never forgets its source," she whispered. Her journey had begun with a desperate prayer and ended with a village reborn. But as the fires burned low and the stars turned, a final, gentle sign appeared. In the morning, there would be one last lesson on the nature of honor's new, steady beat. The walk is done, the covenant remade. The crown of shells shines above the door, and the river sings a song of peace. But listen, do you hear it? A new rhythm, steady as a heartbeat, slow to forgive but sure in its course. The story seems complete, yet the river's memory flows on. Come for the last time, as the dawn breaks, and I will sing of the new day, and of the honor that flows like water forever.